Welcome back, and for this one, I just want to make a quick video taking a little bit deeper dive on the Carolina Panthers trading the first overall pick. Kind of refresh your memory. They traded this year's first and second, 2024's first, 2025 second, and Pro Bowl receiver DJ Moore to move from the 9th spot all the way up to the first overall pick with the Chicago Bears. As you see on the screen right now, this one is kind of just grading for both sides. If this one, I do have the Panthers at a B+, which is a little high for me. I guess we want to say maybe prisoner of the moment, but for this one, I do think they get up way too much, move up to the first overall spot, specifically DJ Moore, because I look at it as if you're going to take a quarterback in this year's draft, which is presumably they did throw the idea of trading down again. I don't see that, but if you're going to trade who they say CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, Terrace Marshall Jr. is the number one wide receiver for this team. That's a horrible spot, and maybe they want to be in a position where they're in Chicago, where they draft a quarterback this year, and they can get a good pick, high pick next year. But also the problem is you get up your first round pick next year, so I don't know what they're doing, especially giving up DJ Moore, who's 25 years old, still relatively young, is a bona fide number one receiver, has been very underrated just because he's been stuck in Carolina. And I just don't know, you're not helping your future quarterback without giving him, weapons. I mean, if you did have DJ Moore and maybe go out in free agency and get someone else, or maybe in the second round you do take a receiver in the draft, okay, you're starting to build a pretty good offense around them, kind of similar to Trevor Lawrence. Give him good pieces around them. But for now, it's like you trade your number one wide receiver, and Terrace Marshall's your number one guy. I don't see how it's beneficial, especially for next year when you don't have a first round pick and you can't fall on that to use high to get someone like a Terrence or a Marvin Harrison Jr. Or who else is the top guys in the draft. So I don't get this. I don't believe it should be a B+. I believe it should be a C, C-. I think they gave way too much. If they were able to keep DJ Moore and just trade those picks and maybe throw in like an extra mid pick in the draft in 2024, 2025, then say, okay, it's a good deal. But to throw all that in and plus a Pro Bowl number one receiver, I think they way overpaid for that. But that's just me. Of course, you have some people out there saying, hey, it's a good deal. Go get your guy. And from part of me too is in that philosophy where, if you really do believe that this quarterback's your guy, your franchise guy, you do whatever it takes to get to him. You trade whatever it takes to get up to first overall and pick the guy. But I just think for just looking at it just right now at this moment, I think it's just way too much in my opinion. So I think B+ is way too generous for them. And A-, I would probably just argue A+. I think the Chicago fleeced them. I know some people are, people are out there saying that they didn't. It was a move to move up and get and have the options for all four quarterbacks, which is good. They have every option available to you, but I think this is an amazing trade to build around Justin Fields. You get the 9th overall pick spot where you can maybe a chance where you take a receiver along with that too. Maybe you take his teammate Jackson Smith. I know he talked about how he's kind of still kept in touch with them with Justin Fields and he's been in Chicago. I think Jackson Smith at 9 is too high, but if they feel him or whoever's available, they can go out and get him, or they can get an offensive lineman, or potentially if Jalen Carter does fall to him because of all the problems, we'll see. But they're in an interesting spot. They also get an additional second round pick. On top of that too, next year they get another first round pick, so they have 2 firsts in 2024, and then an additional 5th round pick in 2025. On top of that too, getting a Pro Bowl number one receiver for Justin Fields. I think they've really turned this team around. At least for now, are setting themselves up in a great position with Justin Fields. I do agree with sticking with Fields. I know there was a lot of reports, going back and forth of, should they pick Young and move on from Fields? I made a video a few weeks ago about that, and I do believe this was the right decision to keep Justin Fields and build around him. I think he has great talent to be the franchise guy, but he can't show that when you don't have pieces around him. I think getting him DJ Moore and potentially adding on to that with this year's draft and maybe into next year, I think is amazing for what Chicago did. They really turned this around with the blessing and getting the first overall pick because of Houston's mistakes of winning the last game. So I do love this. I do love this for Chicago. I do agree with the A-. I don't agree with the B+ with Carolina. I think this was a worse trade for them. I say at the best case scenario, you give them a C. Then quickly, I want to switch over and kind of break down the two quarterbacks, or I should say three. I'll throw in Richardson, even though I do think he's a outlier for this one. It kind of give you the pros and cons for both of them, or all three. So CJ Stroud, 6'4", 214 pounds. Draft comp, Jared Goff. I saw, and all these pros and cons and draft comps are going to be from NFL page. Some of them, some of these I've pros and cons, and of course the comps I did throw in there. So the NFL did have Jared Goff as a comp for CJ Stroud. I did throw in Andrew Luck because I heard one or a couple people do mention his name as a comparison. I think Jared Goff is a pretty solid comp, seeing that he, you look at his success. He has taken his team to the Super Bowl for the Rams and played pretty well with the Lions so far. So I don't think this is not a knock on him. Good arm, doesn't hesitate to tackle with throws. Had his best game against Georgia in the semifinals. I agree with that. After watching that game, I do believe he had the best game. And I think I put him slightly ahead of Bryce Young because of that. Showing willingness to extend plays with his legs really showed that in the Georgia game. Most accurate QB in the draft class that they dub, and progressions to throw. I do think also people view him as the safest quarterback to pick, which I do see that. I could see you can make the argument with Bryce Young, but there is a big knock on him, which is the obvious. Cons, hesitates to use his legs. For the most part, he didn't do that all for this year, except for the exception with the semifinals. Needs to play better with better recognition or slash respect for safeties. Interceptions arise when he refuses to come off a primary receiver against staring down receivers. That's not that's kind of like not an uncommon thing for rookie quarterbacks. Needs to clear and scan for potential pressure points near the line of scrimmage. And for draft position, again, first overall pick. As soon as Carolina made that draft, or they made the trade, CJ Stroud's for his odds, went to number one. People believe that they are going to take him as the quote-unquote safest pick in this year's draft. But if you can get another Jared Goff or Andrew Luck out of this guy, I think that's a great position to be in. Number two again, I think the big thing too is quickly going down to size. If he was the size of like these other guys for CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson, there's no question this guy is the favorite for number one, and he'd probably be dubbed as a generational talent. But just quickly going through the rest before we jump ahead. Bryce Young, 5'10", 204. Did not run the 40-yard. Draft comp, I kind of threw some of these around. Drew Brees. This is more of a joke for Steph Curry because someone on CBS, I want to say it's during or after the Senior Bowl, they were trying to make a comp for all quarterbacks, and they got to Bryce Young, and someone threw out Steph Curry. So, he's like the Steph Curry, he can just make plays, which is pretty horrible because I don't know. Yeah, Steph Curry's an unbelievable player. He's a Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever do it, but what does it have to do with the NFL? I don't know how to really comp that in the NFL, but I just threw him there as a joke. Russell Wilson, and I guess worst case scenario is Doug Flutie, but I doubt he would be like that. I think you're really hoping for maybe this too, you get the Steph Curry of the NFL, but for these two, definitely Drew Brees and Russell Wilson. So calm demeanor on the field, plays in a pro-style offense, requires full field style that requires full field vision, shows ability to dial up and focus in fourth quarter games. Again, I've not seen this guy in college play a horrible game. 2 years ago, he had an amazing comeback in the fourth quarter against Auburn, and then this year against Texas. But overall, again, I cannot recall a horrible game that he's played or say that Alabama lost because of him. And kind of going to the next one, never had a bad game and also was never injured. Uses eyes to manipulate defenses to create easier throws. Good operation time with compact release as a thrower. Good rush awareness and pocket mobility. So overall, pros, definitely. Again, if he was just taller, he would be the unquestioned number one quarterback. And this would be this from now to the draft would be the Bryce Young sweepstakes, and could potentially still be. But going to the cons, what we just talked about, size, durability concerns. He is 5'10", 204. He's the shortest quarterback since Kyler Murray. When we're talking about a potential first overall pick, we did have this. I remember personally seeing him in Oklahoma. He was unbelievable. He had elite talent. He was unbelievable, but people questioned his size, if he was going to last the NFL. Kyler didn't have injury problems in college, but as you see in the last 2 years, he's got banged up and has kind of slowed down in the second half of the season, the last 2 seasons, and has missed games. So it definitely is a concern with Bryce Young being 5'10", 204. Now, it does help that he played in the best conference in the SEC against the top talent, elite defenses, and he accomplished that. He went through it all, and he made it out alive. But it doesn't mean that it's a guarantee he's going to make it to the NFL, and that's a huge concern, being 5'10", 204. Initially, they had him under 200, but he's listed at 204. I still believe he is a top pick for number 1 overall, and we'll get to that in a second. We'll just jump down to that right now. First overall pick, him and C.J. Stroud are 1 and 2, or A1, AB for the first overall pick, but just kind of rounding out the cons. Tends to run receivers up against the boundary. Needs to prove that he can find reads quickly and stay on schedule. And deep ball comes out flat and loses energy late. Again, I think overall the biggest concern is just the top 2. I think, but I do believe overall the pros outweigh the cons. Again, you can't fix his size. He is who he is. But I think seeing some of this stuff, especially manipulating defenses and create easier throws, that's stuff that for a lot of quarterbacks it takes a few years to learn the NFL, or a couple of years in the NFL to learn. So the fact that he already has that down, he's already playing a pro-style offense, he's played in a tough conference, in the toughest conference in the NCAA, has shown every time he plays, it's been clutch for the most part, I should say. Going back and saying that there's not a game where people can say, yeah, he played horrible, he's the reason why they lost. He's nothing been short of spectacular. And I guess you can kind of understand why one analyst said Steph Curry, because he's a freak, really, in a way. Like, he's a small quarterback, which is very different than what the standard is for a lot of owners, or a lot of teams, I should say. Even though in recent time we're starting to get shorter, smaller quarterbacks coming in the NFL, being drafted high, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and so forth, but again, he has a potential to really break out of that and be the exception, like Russell Wilson, like Drew Brees. So that's why I have him as the, no question, first overall pick. Him and Stroud are going to be fighting for that. And the wild card for this one is probably the most polarizing one of all of them, is Anthony Richardson. 6'4", 244. His claim to fame so far is his 40-yard dash at 4.43. Draft comps, the NFL had Cam Newton, but I also threw in Josh Allen, because you're going to see, especially for the cons, he really resembles Allen early on. And the last one, too, which I'm surprised I haven't seen a lot, is Cardale Jones. And people are, I see a lot of people online saying that he looks like he's going to be a bust. It's for sure. He reminds me of a lot of Cardale Jones. When Cardale Jones burst out into the scene, when he won the national championship game, or helped, lead it, him and Ezekiel Elliott to their first national championship game under the playoff era, people were already saying he was a first-round talent. Some even saying first overall pick. Next season he plays horrible. I'm pretty sure he got benched his final season too, or missed a few games as well. And he dropped all the way down to the 4th round to the Bills, and ever since then did not pan out whatsoever. So he does give me a lot of Cardale Jones vibes because of just getting hyped up on his physical attributes as opposed to what he actually did on the field. But for pros, elite size, no question, with his frame, 6'4", 244, running a 4.4, it's freakish. It's Josh Allen. It's Cam Newton. Potential to play in various schemes. Again, just having the ability to be mobile, it definitely fits him in more different schemes as opposed to maybe some others where they have to be stuck in a certain type of one. Can make explosive plays as a passer and runner. Arm strength to throw downfield and throw into tight windows. Functional pass accuracy when mechanically sound and into rhythm. Kind of given for anybody. Willing to take a hit and still deliver the throw. Had a touchdown interception ratio of 12-2 in the final 6 games. Had a slow start in the beginning of the season, and as you see here on the flip side, at the last half of it, the last 6 games, he really turned it around. Cons, raw talent. Again, this is where a lot of Josh Allen comparisons are going to come in. Raw talent, same problems or same discussions that we had about Josh Allen in 2018 as a potential first overall pick was raw talent. Inconsistent with accuracy. He had a 53.8% completion percentage in 2022. and a 54.7 for his career. 2022 was his first year starting. He was there. He's been with Florida for 3 years. This is kind of his first time as a starter. Stats weren't that great, especially for completion percentage. Teams now in the NFL want to see mid 60s, at the very worst, low 60s, and the fact that he is just barely over, or a little bit in that low 50s, is very concerning. And that's where kind of the Cam Newton comparison comes up. And then Josh Allen coming out in Wyoming had the same problems as well. He was around 56% completion. So very concerning with the accuracy. Has the talent, has the arm, probably strongest arm out of anybody in this draft. But again, downside is very inaccurate. Could use better feel for timing and his progressions. You just take some power off his short throws. Josh Allen, especially early on, even to this day, so at some throws where he wants to throw the strongest pass or the fastest pass, no matter where it is. If it's a 60-yard down the field or it's a 5-yard pass, he wants to put everything he has into it. He needs to learn how to put touch into it. And of course, again, being a Bills fan, we've witnessed this with Josh Allen early on. Even again to this day, he does this. But early on, he had a lot of problems with that, where he wanted to throw 100% throw power in every pass. Below average touch and ball placement rolling out. Again, similar to Allen. Especially if he's going to be utilized like Allen or Cam Newton or whoever, where they're going to have to use him for play action and have him roll out. He's definitely have to really lock that down and really get good at that to really maximize the threat potential of him as a runner as well. Hasn't learned to manipulate coverage with his eyes. Again, for Bryce Young, I know we said, you don't see that common when quarterbacks have that already coming out of the draft, but it's going to take him a little bit for him to kind of learn that. Struggles with anticipation and is willing to flip the ball out instead of taking the sack. Again, same thing with Josh Allen, even to this day, this year with a lot of his interceptions. Instead of willing to take the sack and live for another day if it's a third down, or just take the next live on and go for the next whatever it is, second down, third down, or whatever. He forces the ball and it gets and sometimes it doesn't get picked off, and more times than not, it's a turnover. And you can't have that for Anthony Richardson. I do have a draft position top 5 or 10, though I do think he is a dark horse to be the first overall pick for this, just because I think people will get too caught up on the physical size and try and make him into hopefully hitting the next lottery of getting, hey, I have the next Josh Allen on my team. And I think people are going to be too obsessed with that, of just trying to mold him into a next Josh Allen. Or a better version of Cam Newton, but again, I just think he gives me way too many Cardale Jones vibes of how he plays, and I just worry that he's going to get put in the wrong situation and he's going to fail, especially in Carolina with no talent around him. With this guy, you need to maximize, the staff of people, getting people that that can develop him the right way, get him pieces around them, and trying to figure out if he is the guy. But especially with Carolina not having that, and not having the pieces around them, not having the draft picks, at least for next year, and we'll see what the quarterback they have. Of course, for our head coach Frank Reich being a former quarterback, it could help. But I just think Carolina for right now would be a bad spot for him. He needs to go somewhere that has better pieces around them and a better support to develop them. I don't think Carolina is the right place for him to go. But I do want to put him out there as a potential first overall pick. But no doubt the top 2 is going to be CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. My pick's going to be, I think they'll lean towards CJ Stroud, especially if you can get, CJ Stroud, especially if you can get another Andrew Luck. We considered Andrew Luck generational when he came out. But at very worst, if you can get Jared Goff, I think that's good enough for Carolina. And you can get those pieces around them. I think that's great. But that's my quick breakdown of all the 3 quarterbacks: CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson. And again, just going back to for the grades and kind of a little bit talking about the draft for the trade overall for the first overall pick and kind of breaking down their grades. Again, I think they have, for CBS, they have Carolina way too high. I think they overpaid to go to the first overall spot, but regardless, they have it now. Can't turn back. I don't think they're going to trade it. Like I said, I think they're going to be stuck. They're going to be focused on taking one of these guys. I do believe it's CJ Stroud. But regardless of whoever it is, you got to make sure with the big compensation that you gave up, especially giving up DJ Moore, which is my big problem with the trade. you're really going to have to hope and bank on that this guy is going to become one of the elite quarterbacks. Because as of right now, the NFC is very weak, especially with the elite quarterbacks in that conference as opposed to the stacked part in the AFC. So if he can quickly become one of the best quarterbacks in NFL, it's definitely going to put your team in position to be one of the top teams to compete in the, no question, make the playoffs and also compete to get to the Super Bowl. Again, that's my quick thoughts on the whole Carolina Panthers situation, breaking down the 3 quarterbacks that are considered to be first overall projections. Besides that, let me know your thoughts down below on the situation. If you do agree with Carolina trading up, if you do think that they gave up too much to acquire the first overall pick, and also your thoughts on the quarterbacks, which one you do believe will be taken first. With all that being said, thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.